Hi, my name is Luke. I go to Balham. I work for a charity that works with prisoners and their families, and I've worked in prisons for around 6 years. When someone goes to prison, it has a huge and really misunderstood impact on their families. We know that in England and Wales, 200,000 children a year have a parent go to prison, which is a huge number and twice the number of children who are affected every year by divorce. And we know those children suffer a lot from stigma. We know that their mental health is impacted, that their school attendance and school performance is impacted. And unlike, say, divorce or bereavement, often people don't know about it, teachers don't know about it, and the children don't want to talk about it.
Hello Church, I'm Alexander McLean, founder of Justice Defenders. We work to defend justice with defenceless communities through legal education, training and practice. We're a community of 300 prisoner and prison officer paralegals in 37 prisons, working alongside lawyers and legal academics and allies to defend prisoners who have no access to lawyers. Last year we worked on 10,000 cases, resulting in 5,000 prisoners being released from prison by the courts. As you can imagine, prisons are tough places to be in times of pandemic, and I'm sure you'll have read about the number of prisoners and prison officers who've been getting sick and dying from this disease. We believe that the hope that Jesus offers is more relevant in prisons and outside now than ever.
Prisons in England went into lockdown on the 23rd of March, so that means in the last 11 weeks there have been no visits at all. Prisoners haven't got to see their families, and prisoners have been mostly kept in their cells for 23 hours a day. And we know the lack of visits and the lack of information coming out has created a huge amount of anxiety for families, and families are really worried about their loved ones in prison. We also know that those prisoners have been in their cells at least 23 hours a day without access to lots of things that they would normally have, like going to church, activities, education. And we know that just 20 minutes down the road from Balham in HMP Wandsworth, that prisoners who were showing symptoms were kept in their cells for 14 days. They weren't allowed out to use the showers, to make phone calls, to use the bathroom or anything.
Every Tuesday morning I lead our church's Lectio Divina session on Zoom, a prayerful way of reading the Bible. On Wednesday I do the same thing on Zoom with Kenyan prisoners and prison officers and lawyers and judges and magistrates. It's powerful seeing how we can come together as human beings from very different backgrounds to seek God and to serve and love others at this time. I'm inspired by people like Ruth here. She was arrested a few years after leaving secondary school and sentenced to death last year. In this pandemic, she's studying with us for a University of London law degree from death row and working as a paralegal there. As an organisation, our response to this pandemic looks at providing prisons with soap and sanitizer, medicines and sanitary pads to keep prisoners and prison officers healthy and safe at this time. It looks at facilitating online courts to keep the wheels of justice turning. Here you can see Susan, who spent 5 years awaiting trial at Machakos prison in Kenya, getting her not guilty verdict from the judge. Watch how she celebrates with our prison officer paralegals at news of her freedom. We're working to decongest prisons by getting the most vulnerable, non-violent offenders who are in prison because they're too poor to pay a fine released.
My faith has always inspired me to want to work with the most marginalised people, because that's what the Bible tells us to do, that's what Jesus tells us to do. And if you're looking for marginalised people in this country, then you can't look away from prisons. We know that people who are in prison are more likely to be victims of abuse, more likely to have been through the care system, to be excluded from school, to suffer from addiction. We know they're more likely to be from minority backgrounds. So my faith compels me to do that. Please pray for prisoners, for hope and for peace while they're locked up 23 hours a day. Pray for prison staff for their safety, Pray for the government and the Ministry of Justice for wisdom and compassion in their decision making. Pray for peace and hope for families, freedom from their anxiety. And if this is something you'd like to be more involved in, there's hundreds of ways to do that. Loads of great organisations to volunteer for or even work for if you're interested in supporting chaplaincy, or if you work in education or healthcare. Please look at how you can be involved in prisons.
Thank you for your prayers and for your encouragement. I believe that we can look back on this time and say it was a time when we kept the wheels of justice moving and when we showed love to those that the world's rejected.